A routine humanitarian visit takes a shocking turn when Cristiano Ronaldo meets Yaya, a young refugee with a heartbreaking story. Moved by the boy's resilience, Ronaldo vows to change his fate. But when Yaya vanishes without a trace, what begins as a promise turns into a desperate race against time. Defying the odds, challenging the system and risking it all, Ronaldo fights to give Yaya a second chance at life. But can he find him before it's too late? And will his determination be enough to beat a system designed to forget? This is a powerful story of fate, hope, and an unbreakable bond that refuses to be broken. The air was thick with dust and desperation. Torn tents flapped under the weight of a scorching sun, while children with hollow eyes clung to whatever scraps of hope remained. In the heart of the refugee camp, a boy no older than 10 sat alone on the dry, cracked earth, his fingers tracing invisible patterns in the dust. At his feet lay a worn-out football, its stitches unravelling like the life he once knew. His name was Yaya, and he had lost everything. The boy barely lifted his gaze when a convoy of vehicles rolled through the camp entrance, attracting the attention of aid workers and starstruck refugees. It wasn't every day that one of the most famous men on the planet arrived in a place forgotten by the world. Cristiano Ronaldo stepped out, his presence commanding yet humble. He had seen suffering before, but something about this place, about this moment, felt different. His eyes scanned the camp, absorbing the faces of displaced souls, mothers searching for lost children, fathers staring into the void of their own helplessness. Then his gaze locked onto Yaya, a small, fragile figure, untouched by the frenzy of the crowd, unmoved by the spectacle of a global icon in his midst. Drawn by something unexplainable, Ronaldo approached. He knelt beside the boy, watching as Yaya's fingers dug absent-mindedly into the dirt. For a moment neither spoke. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, Ronaldo asked, "What's your name?" The boy hesitated, then murmured, "Yaya." Ronaldo offered a small smile. "Do you play football?" Yaya didn't answer. Instead, he nudged the ragged ball with the side of his foot, as if to say once, maybe, but not anymore. Ronaldo's heart clenched. He had met thousands of young fans in his lifetime, boys who worshipped the game, who would give anything for a single moment in his presence. But this boy carried something different. Pain, loss. And then, as if realizing he had nothing left to lose, Yaya finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but heavy. "My family is gone." Ronaldo felt the weight of those words sink deep. He had come to this camp expecting to give food, money, resources. But in this moment he realized this boy needed something far greater. Hope. And so, without hesitation, Ronaldo reached for the ragged football. "Let's play." The ball wobbled unevenly across the dirt, its battered seams struggling to hold together. Yaya barely moved at first, letting Ronaldo nudge it toward him. The boy's eyes remained hollow, as if he'd forgotten what it meant to play, to feel joy. Ronaldo tapped the ball again, this time with more intent. A gentle challenge. Finally, Yaya lifted his foot and stopped it. For the first time he looked up, really looked, at the man kneeling before him. Cristiano Ronaldo wasn't just here for a photo. He wasn't pretending. He wanted Yaya to play. A flicker of something, muscle memory perhaps, stirred in the boy. He nudged the ball back. A weak touch, but a beginning. Ronaldo grinned. That's it. Again. Slowly a rhythm emerged. The ball moved back and forth, dust rising in small puffs with every tap. A few children gathered around, drawn by the unexpected sight of a living legend kicking a ball in the middle of their forgotten world. But Yaya's eyes remained distant, even as his touches grew stronger. Ronaldo could see it. His body was here, but his heart was somewhere else. Minutes later, Ronaldo stopped the ball under his foot. "Tell me your story." Yaya's eyes darkened, his small hands gripping the fabric of his worn-out shirt. For a moment he said nothing. Then, in a quiet, hollow voice, he began. "We left home for a better life. For a chance." His gaze flickered to the sky, as if searching for something long lost. "We crossed the desert, hid in trucks, walked for days. Then they put us on a boat." Ronaldo remained still, listening. It wasn't a boat. Not really. Just wood and rope packed with too many people. Then the storm came. Yaya swallowed hard. I remember my mother screaming, my father trying to hold on to the raft, but the boat, it capsized. His voice faltered, but he pressed on. I was holding my sister's hand when the water pulled us apart. I don't know what happened to them. His voice cracked, but he kept going. I had a life jacket. That's the only reason I'm still alive. The Coast Guard pulled me out, and then some people brought me here. Ronaldo took a slow breath, forcing down the lump in his throat. This wasn't just a statistic or a distant headline. This was a child, one who had lost more than anyone should ever have to bear. Yaya glanced up, his face unreadable. They said if no one finds my family, I'll be sent back to Mali. His voice cracked, but there's nothing left for me there. A chill ran down Ronaldo's spine. He had seen suffering before, but this was different. This was a child on the edge of losing even the sliver of life he had left. The realization hit him with force. He couldn't walk away. He wouldn't. Ronaldo placed a steady hand on Yaya's shoulder. "Listen to me," he said, his voice firm but warm. "No matter what happens, I promise you, you're not alone." For the first time, Yaya's expression wavered. A crack in the wall he had built. Ronaldo knew then, this was only the beginning. Days turned into weeks, but Yaya never left Ronaldo's thoughts. He had visited countless refugee camps before, donated millions to humanitarian causes, but this time, something was different. The boy's quiet strength, his unimaginable loss, it had left an imprint on Ronaldo's heart. Back home, he found himself replaying their conversation, seeing Yaya's vacant stare, hearing his hollow voice. He knew the boy needed more than just kind words and a fleeting visit. Yaya needed someone to fight for him. Determined, Ronaldo made arrangements. He would return to the camp, personally ensure that Yaya was placed in a better environment, and use every resource at his disposal to find the boy's family. If they were alive, he would reunite them, and if they weren't, then he would make sure Yaya never had to face the world alone. When Ronaldo's private jet touched down near the camp weeks later, his heart raced with anticipation. He had envisioned Yaya's face lighting up when he saw him again. He had pictured handing the boy good news, perhaps a lead on his missing family, or an opportunity for a fresh start. But the moment he stepped out of the vehicle and scanned the camp, something felt wrong. Gone was the slight buzz of recognition from his last visit. The children who had once gathered to watch him play football now averted their eyes. The air felt heavier. He spotted the camp director, a woman who had greeted him warmly before, but this time her face was tight with unease. Ronaldo's gut twisted. "Where's Yaya?" The woman hesitated. Then with a deep sigh, she said the words he wasn't prepared to hear. "He's gone." The ground beneath Ronaldo seemed to shift. "Gone?" His voice was sharper than he intended. "What do you mean, gone?" The director's expression darkened. He was relocated to another camp 2 weeks ago. His case was flagged for deportation. He's being sent back to Mali. The words crashed over Ronaldo like a tidal wave. Deportation? A child with no home? No family? His pulse thundered in his ears. Where was he taken? The woman bit her lip. "That's the problem. Records aren't always reliable. I have an idea of where he might be, but he could have been moved again." Panic clawed at Ronaldo's chest. Every second Yaya was lost, he inched closer to being sent back to a country that held nothing for him. No home, no family, just the ghosts of a life he barely escaped. This wasn't happening. He couldn't let it happen. Ronaldo's jaw clenched. "Tell me where to start." The race against time had begun. Ronaldo had faced impossible odds before. Last-minute goals, championship deciders, moments where everything hung by a thread. But nothing had ever felt this urgent. This wasn't about trophies or glory. This was about a boy who had lost everything and was about to lose even more. The refugee system was a tangled maze of bureaucracy, delays, and endless paperwork. But Ronaldo had one advantage. He refused to be ignored. With his team making frantic calls, Ronaldo himself jumped into action. He met with aid workers, pressed officials for answers, and scoured every possible lead. He barely slept, fueled only by sheer determination and the image of Yaya's quiet, haunted face. After hours of relentless searching, a breakthrough came. A local aid worker, a woman named Amara, had seen Yaya. "He was here," she said, voice laced with worry. "But they moved him again. this time to a transit centre near the port. Ronaldo's chest tightened. How long ago? Amara hesitated. Less than 24 hours. Time was slipping away like sand through his fingers. If Yaya left the transit centre, the chances of finding him would shrink to nothing. Without hesitation, Ronaldo grabbed his phone. Get me a car. The drive was brutal. Miles of barren landscape stretching endlessly under the unforgiving sun. Dust swirled in the air, coating the windshield in a thin, hazy film. Ronaldo barely noticed. His mind was locked on one thought. Hold on, Yaya. I'm coming. When he arrived at the transit centre, the scene was chaotic. Hundreds of displaced refugees, makeshift tents, aid workers moving frantically. Ronaldo scanned the faces, his pulse hammering. Where is he? He rushed toward the nearest aid worker. I'm looking for a boy. Yaya. He was transferred here recently. The man frowned. We process so many every day. He shook his head. But if he's here, he won't be for long. There's a deportation list. Once a name is called, they're taken immediately. Ronaldo felt his stomach drop. Show me the list. The worker hesitated. I'm not authorized. Ronaldo leveled him with a stare. Please. After a beat, the man relented, pulling out a battered clipboard. Ronaldo's eyes scanned the names, heart pounding. Then, Yaya. His name was there, marked for departure, today. A surge of adrenaline shot through Ronaldo's veins. Where is he now? The worker looked startled by the urgency in his voice. Probably near the docks. That way. Ronaldo didn't wait for the rest. He sprinted. At the shoreline, a crowd of refugees was being ushered onto a large vessel. Uniformed officers called out names, their voices sharp over the crashing waves. The engine rumbled to life. Time was slipping away. Then, through the crowd, Ronaldo saw him. The boy stood stiffly, arms wrapped around himself, eyes empty. He didn't cry. He didn't fight. It was as if he had already accepted his fate. Ronaldo's heart twisted. Yaya! The boy's head jerked up at the sound of his name. His eyes widened. Disbelief. Hope. Ronaldo sprinted forward, weaving through the sea of bodies, shoving past officials who barked in protest. Just as a guard reached for Yaya's shoulder, Ronaldo got there first. He's not going anywhere. The guard turned, about to argue, until recognition hit. The commotion around them died down as people realized who was standing there. A tense silence fell over the crowd. This boy is under my protection, Ronaldo said firmly. Step aside. No one dared to move. Then, finally, one by one, the officials relented. The tension broke. Yaya looked up at Ronaldo, his small frame trembling. For the first time since they had met, he whispered, You came back. Ronaldo knelt, gripping the boy's shoulders. I told you, you're not alone. But it wasn't over yet. Saving Yaya from the boat was one thing. Keeping him safe forever was another. And Ronaldo was prepared to fight to make sure the boy would never have to live in fear again. Rescuing Yaya from the deportation line was just the beginning. Now Ronaldo faced an even greater battle, the legal system. Governments didn't make exceptions, not even for football legends. Refugee cases moved at a snail's pace, tangled in bureaucracy. A child without documents, without a verifiable family. He was nothing more than a case number in an overburdened system. But Ronaldo refused to let Yaya become just another statistic. Back home, Ronaldo assembled a team of top human rights lawyers. They pored over asylum laws, looking for any possible avenue to keep Yaya safe. Meanwhile, Ronaldo reached out to organizations, media outlets, and influencers, using his platform to bring attention to Yaya's case. The world was watching now, but with every breakthrough there was another setback. The authorities argued that Yaya's case didn't meet the strict criteria for asylum. Without official confirmation that his family was deceased, they insisted that he be returned to Mali. Ronaldo clenched his jaw. And if his family's alive, how do you expect a child to find them in a country devastated by natural disasters? A cold shrug was the only response. Ronaldo knew the truth. The system wasn't built to save children like Yaya, but he was. One night, after another frustrating legal meeting, Ronaldo sat with Yaya in his home. The boy had been quiet, watching the news coverage of his own case with the distant look of someone who had seen too much of life too soon. Finally, he turned to Ronaldo. What happens if we lose? Ronaldo met his gaze. We won't. But what if we do? Yaya's voice was small. Ronaldo exhaled. Then we fight harder. A long silence. Then, for the first time, Yaya spoke words Ronaldo would never forget. I want to play football. Ronaldo's heart clenched. Not just survive, not just exist. For the first time since they met, Yaya was thinking beyond the next day, beyond survival. Ronaldo placed a hand on his shoulder. Then you will. And in that moment, he made another silent vow. Yaya's life wouldn't just be saved, it would be lived. Days turned into weeks, and then, finally, a breakthrough. One of Ronaldo's private investigators uncovered a crucial detail. Yaya's mother and sister had been found in a distant refugee camp. They were alive, exhausted, malnourished, but alive. Ronaldo acted immediately. He arranged for their safe passage, ensuring they received medical care, food, and shelter. When Yaya saw them, his breath caught. For a moment he stood frozen, as if afraid it wasn't real. Then, tears. A desperate embrace. A mother, a sister, and a son, reunited against all odds. But Ronaldo knew his work wasn't done. He made sure they would never be separated again. Legal teams finalized their asylum status. Ronaldo found them a permanent home, and as a final promise, he ensured Yaya's dream would not be left behind. The boy who once lost everything now had a future. Years later, the stadium roared. The air buzzed with anticipation. A young player, lean and determined, stepped onto the pitch. Commentators spoke in excited voices. A remarkable story. Rescued from a refugee camp mentored by Cristiano Ronaldo himself, now making his professional debut. On the sidelines, Ronaldo watched, pride swelling in his chest. Yaya turned just before the whistle blew. Their eyes met, a knowing nod, and then the game began.